on the biological hierarchy. So just in case you were wondering how do you say his name, here it is written right at the bottom. Anyways, so the first question that might arise in your mind, okay, why is he making a video on biological hierarchy? It could be because some of them I think it's a really easy topic. Well, to be honest with you, I agree with you on that point that it's not that hard. But the reason why I choose this topic to be one of my first videos on biology is that when you study the biological hierarchy, I became quite fascinated with it because on each step you are able to witness some kind of just I don't want to spoil it, so I don't want to spoil it. I want to make it for the end of the video, so I'm just going to start the presentation, and at the end I'm going to tell you the fascinating thing. Anyways, so let's start. The biological hierarchy. So the first step, let me select the pen. All right. So the first step in the biological hierarchy is basically the first step. The first thing is the atom. Well, simple as that. So just about everybody knows what an atom is, but just still for sake of simplicity, atom. What's an atom, Cheyenne? Well, an atom is the basic fundamental unit. Nice word to say. Fundamental unit of what? Of matter. Okay. So now you might be saying, okay, so are we matter? Yes, of course we are matter. Anything which has space and has a mass is a matter. So you might be saying, okay, I am space and I occupy some space and I have a mass. So am I matter? And okay, then the computer has some mass and also occupies some space. Is that a matter? Yes, it is. And what's the difference? Okay, well, the difference is the fundamental unit of matter is atom, but the fundamental unit of life. Now I'm talking about two different things here. The fundamental unit of matter is atom. Okay, we are matter too, but the point where life arises, or the point where we come to see the different properties of life, is a cell. So, not cells, cell. So, the fundamental unit of matter is an atom, and the basic unit of life is a cell. So, cell. Now, so the biological hierarchy, if we start off with an atom, but when you're talking about life, we're talking basically about cell. But if you divide cells, you literally end up into molecules and eventually into atoms. But I want to make it clear here. The point at which life arises is a cell. So from an atom, atoms combine together to form molecules. Simple. No big thing in there. And from molecules, we end up. And from molecule, if you want to say, okay, what kind of example you can give me on a biological molecule, the simple one which everybody knows, well, is the DNA, the deoxyribonucleic acid. And from molecule, if you go a little bit step further, from molecule, we end up different molecules combined to form organelles, which are simply organs of the cell. You can view them as little organs. And from organs, we go to the cell. So from organelles, we reach to the point where I was talking about earlier, the cell. The cell, as I said before, is a basic functional and structural unit of life. And if you want to know from which the word came from, it's basically from a Latin word cella, which means compartments or rooms, basically, because it was when Robert Hooke, if I'm not mistaken, no, I'm not. When Robert Hooke discovered cell the first time, he basically saw small rooms, which he called cella. Now it eventually turned out to be called cell. And if you want to know the word atoms, well, Democritus used the word atoms in 300 BC. A basically means not and tum means divisible, basically means not divisible. But today we do know that atom is divisible. So, but still the word remains apart. Anyways, my focus of this video is basically on the biological hierarchy. So as we go on, the cell, now cells combine to form tissues, and each tissue has, well, the similar tissues, like similar cells combine to form tissues such as the nervous tissue or the muscle tissue or the skeletal tissue in your body. And the next step from tissue, we go on to organs. Like different tissues combine to form organs such as your brain, your heart consists the heart and your lungs, your liver, these are all your organs which are formed from tissues. And as we go on from organs, we reach to an organ systems where different organs combine to form a function, such as, like, if you're talking about the respiratory system, your lungs, your heart, your trachea, your oesophagus. I mean, all of these are working together in perfect coordination actually to perform a specific function, that is respiration or breathing. Let's say breathing or respiration is another thing, breathing. And from organ system, we eventually rise up to an organism, which is me and you. Different organs combine to form organism. Now, from organism, we basically have a living, the life starts at the level of cell, and as we go on from cell to tissue, and from different from organs to organ system, then organism. Now from organism we eventually come up, now we are talking about a full animal or a full human being, in any case you want to view it. So now organisms such as, if you're talking about a deer or animal, I'm just picking up deer, I don't know why, but picking up deer. So like organisms live together, like similar species of organisms live together in a population. And different populations live together in a community. Now I'm running out of space. Just move the arrow right like this. And so, like in a population, you have like basically like the human population, where all of us are human living with each other. Or in case of animals, like you have a population of lions or a population of deers, a population of ox or something. Now, as different populations live together, they're called a community. Like if you're living at the coast, you see like different birds, and if you're looking through the sand, you're seeing like crabs and crabs and turtles. So different population of organisms living in an area. And as you go from community, and now then these communities and how they interact with their non-living environment, by non-living I mean like air, water, sunlight, how are they living together with each other, with interacting with each other in their non-living environment, then what you call the ecosystem. And from an ecosystem, and as different ecosystems are combined, so you can see like different, like how did we start from just an atom, and we are able to go from all the way through atom to an ecosystem. And as we move further on, so we eventually reach to the biosphere, or bio basically means life, and sphere as a sphere, like ball shaped structure. So you can imagine a biosphere means basically earth, like the portion of earth where it supports life, such as the water bodies, or, well, you can find life with mostly everywhere. So we went from all the way through atom to molecules, to organelles, to cell, to tissue, to organs, to organ system, organism, population, community, ecosystem, and eventually the biosphere. Now, the reason, now you might be saying, okay, Cheyenne, you were saying at the first there was some fascinating thing you wanted to tell us about, and what was that? All right, now here's the fascinating thing. As you have seen, as we are going from higher and to higher level, we are seeing new kinds of properties. So you might be thinking, okay, what do you mean? So, all right, the properties which the atom has and the properties are which the molecule has are not the same. The properties which the organelles have and the properties which the atom has, well, they're not the same. Now, if you can just imagine properties which a deer have or an organism has and the properties which the cell has, you see, I just skipped three words, I mean the three stages. They're not the same. I mean, cells has different properties rather than an organism, but still the organism is made out of the cell. So what's so exciting about it? So the exciting thing about this is that this is what we call emergent of new properties. Emergent of new properties. And basically this is what all biology is, well, not, I mean, like all the theme of biology, like as that biology is basically the study of life. And if we look at the history, there were basically three different, well, there were actually quite many if you subdivided them, but there were three basically three basically philosophical theories which explain how what is life. So as we know that biology is the study of life, and what is life? The one was the theory of physicalism or the mechanist theory. Physicalists, they were a group of people. And the second was the vitalism, the vitalist. And the third one was organist. Now, today, the predominant theory about life is basically the organist. But organist is related, and I can make another video on this. But the organist is like the combined form of, somewhat a little bit twisted, but the combined form of physicalism and vitalism. And so the amazing thing, okay, still, Shannon, what was the amazing thing you were talking about? Well, the amazing thing was like emergent of new properties. It basically tells us, and it is actually the theory of organists, this one is related to the emergent of new properties. What does the organism theory, the philosophy says, is that it is not how the organism is composed, but how it is organized. Like the whole is dependent on its parts. It means that the beautiful thing about this whole process is not like how it is formed, but how it is organized. And as we move on from further to further stages, we came to see that, oh my God, there are new sets of properties at each level. And so you might be thinking, okay, I'm just not getting what you're trying to say here. Well, you might be thinking, as I said in the beginning, the whole is dependent on its part. So even though the molecule is a whole, but and the part of molecule is the atom. So they both have two different kinds of properties. Now, if we go a little bit more further, like to the organelles. Now, what was whole before that is the molecule is now a part of what? Of the organelle. Now, organelle is the whole of both molecules and atoms, but it has a different sets of properties than the molecules and the atoms. And as we move on from organelles to cell is now what was the whole before that? The whole was organelle. Now, as we move on further to cell, it's a different thing. And I mean, not a different thing. It's now a whole, and the part is the organelle, molecules, and atoms. And cell has totally different kinds of properties. I mean, totally different kinds of ways, I mean, the function of cell is totally a lot different than a function of an organelle, or a function of how atom behaves, or a function that how molecule behaves. So this is what organism is. So the organism basically says there are basically, I, for my sake of simplicity of understanding, and I just read it in the book. It says that the it's not how the organism is composed, like it's not how the cell is composed of organelles or molecules, it's how it's organized which defines the life. And there are two basic major developments which help in the study of life. One was the emergence of new properties, actually, and the second one was genetics. So this is another video. I shouldn't be just talking about this right now, but this is what the fascinating thing was. Like, as you move on to higher and higher development, and based on this organist philosophy or thought, on each development you have emergence of new properties. This is the new properties. So hope you find it useful and not too boring, and see you in the next video. Thank you.